a really good photographer can make very professional looking pictures with very cheap equipment, and this is why my equipment is so expensive.
And good photos come from setting people into context.
That's how I lost about 1,000 euro during one night.
I would say the lighting equipment that I got is the least useful for me.
I need to bring at least 6 lights because otherwise they are feeling like they are not getting their money's worth.
It's like Harry Potter and the wand. You go to the store and the wand picks you and you don't pick the wand.
Even though it doesn't make any sense, it's still going to look interesting. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Farsi Photo.
And I'm Pinsel, hello.
And we are back with another episode of Photographer Cast. And this time we are going to be talking about the holy grail of every photographer, the gear.
And I'm not going to make another joke about gear and kinky. At least we did in preparation.
We are going to do After Dark episode maybe at some point, but
Mhm.
let's focus on camera for now.
We can focus on after dark photography another time. But
I like to photograph after dark, by the way. I mean, like in low light. So what is your opinion about the importance of gear? Let's say camera body for a start.
I think it kind of changed over time. When I started out selecting my new camera, I was very, very interested in looking at the YouTube videos of the different photographers, comparing specs and comparing different brands. What are they for? What can they do? Which potato brand is the most potatoey? And anything like that. And if you would have asked me 4 or 5 years ago, I would have basically been able to give you all the specs, all the rundowns of every camera. And nowadays, I just don't care. If the camera does sort of what I wanted to do, I would be quite content with it. You, as a perfectionist, might not be. Can we disagree here?
Actually, no, I'm not going to disagree.
Oh,
Not sure about several years ago, but nowadays I think that pretty much every camera body is going to deliver competent results. Especially for a beginner. When you start to specialize, maybe if you start doing wildlife photography or sport photography or low light photography, then you may want to look into the specs a little bit about the speed of the burst mode or about the performance in low light. But 95% of normal situations where you're having normal lighting, every camera body is going to do the job. Where I think that gear starts to matter is lens. If you want to spend a lot of money, go for better lens.
I think the lens is quite important. But even then, I would say that depending on your use case, depending on what you want to do, any lens could theoretically work. Some do better, some do worse. When you're going for portraiture and you're going for 200 millimeters focal length, you'll have a much harder time than using, let's just say, 35 for portraitures. If you're going for sports photography,
For portraits?
I would also use 35 for portraitures, yes.
Okay, I
Why
wouldn't,
not?
but well, maybe I would, maybe 50. But I mean, when it comes to portraits, everybody knows that the proper artistic quotation marks look is shallow depth of field. And this is a point where you can become instant professional if you buy something that has very low minimum aperture. Even just lousy 50 millimeters at 1.4 is going to give you that blurry background, that wonderful bokeh. And in my opinion, this is something that is a very cheap way to get a very professional looking photo.
But at some point, you'll be a blind photographer if you keep on using the same portraiture lens with same blurred out background, which I've also said in episode previously. When you're going for a convention space, for example, you don't just want them to have a blurred background. You want something else included. And good photos come from setting people into context, not just getting them with a blurred background in the back, Like a bokeh is nice, but not necessary. It's easier to achieve on a low light or a high aperture lens like 1.4, But when you got a 4.0 lens, you could still do perfectly professional looking photos and probably even better, more impactful ones because you can and would have to include the surroundings of the person and bind them
I'm
into the
having
environment. You know?
I'm having that running joke where I say that a really good photographer can make very professional looking pictures with very cheap equipment, and this is why my equipment is so expensive.
Hmm.
Because because it helps. I mean, of course, we will definitely agree that composition matters, that choosing the location matters, all of these things. But I found that making a simple portrait, very, very simple portrait, literally just the head with nothing in the background and having low aperture, so you get shallow depth of field, people are going to appreciate it. It takes zero work. Everybody can do that, but it's very popular.
Yes, of course. And when you're looking at social media, for example, those are the pictures that kind of work because people like to see the focus solely on the fursuiter and they don't typically spend time looking at the whole environment or the whole frame. It's a
Exactly.
social media
And
age.
my point here is that you won't be able to get this shallow. Uh, I hope that we are not going to scare people out by repeating depth of field all the time. What it means is basically that the foreground and background is going to be blurry while the subject, the fursuiter, for example, is in focus.
Mhm.
But this is something that you can't do in camera when you are not having proper lens, and the lens that can do that is usually going to be expensive.
Yes, of course. I would still not use that as, let's just say, discouragement for people, or even worse, necessity. Oh God, English language is a tough one. The necessity to actually, let's just say, submit to the gear acquisition syndrome. I would say at least.
But everybody loves to submit to it.
It's fun, especially if you
We
got new tools to toy around with. But how often and how long will you actually keep up with the new lenses and new tools?
that's a different question, but that's not what gear acquisition is about. You need that toy, and then you have it, and you realize you don't need it, but you need that one. So you buy that one, and you realize that you don't really need either of them.
That's where I would actually, let's, I would not disapprove, disagree with you. Oh God, my English is terrible today. Would disagree with you here
It's not
because,
just today. Don't worry.
perfect. Would disagree with you because y- you might feel the need to get a lens. You might feel enticed to get the new camera body. You might feel enticed to get another stand for light and another filter and anything like that. But
I do.
what exactly do you need them for? Have you got any plans, any
Uh,
projects to use them in, or is it just that you want to have them for simply having it?
Actually, it's not happening to me much with lens. I went through a few lens. Most of my lens are primes, and to be honest, it's very easy to say every lens is fine when you are having the high-end ones. But what happens to me pretty much every time, I sometimes go to a photographic workshop with a photographer who I deeply admire, and he's very inventive and always trying new stuff, and also always trying new toys. And every time I go there, I see some new toy, and absolutely need to have it. It's usually a new kind of light with a different kind of controls, or it's having a different angle in which it shines, or I've decided I really need a Fresnel light. And pretty much every time the cost of the workshop is doubled because when I return, I'm buying something new. And then it goes into the suitcase, and very often, and then it goes into the cupboard and very often stays there. And then it gets stolen from my car.
What? Stolen from your car?
Yeah, I'm very bright yin, so one day I was really tired, and I don't know how it happened, but I've left my most expensive light in the car, and I left my window open. So it was really very much an invitation. Look, free light, have it.
Oh,
So that's how I lost about €1,000 during one night.
The story sounds familiar. Did we already talk about it, or was it someone
Maybe
else?
we might have. I don't think it matters.
Anyway,
It's just something that, yeah, it was the most expensive piece of gear that I've lost by my own stupidity.
impressive.
But anyway, back
Uh,
back to the original issue. When it comes to gear acquisition syndrome, also commonly known as GAS, I think I've passed that point regarding lens and cameras, but when it comes to lights and accessories, I sometimes feel the temptation. Is there something that you would like to buy, or are you completely satisfied with your collection?
I mean, the temptation is always there, of course, but as I'm a very practical and simple place in that case, because I just care about does it fill a niche? Does it have any kind of value to my plans, to my projects, to my photo shoots, whatever? When I need it, I buy it. When I don't need it, then I won't buy it. Like, for example, I do have high-end lenses, so I might not be that, let's just say, prone to needing more lenses or anything like that. But when I would upgrade from a low-tier lens to a high-tier lens, then I would fill some kind of niche because the high-tier lens does something that the low-tier lens cannot. Like, for example, I have a prime lens with 50 millimeters at f4, and then I would get a prime lens with 50 millimeters f1.4. That would fill kind of a niche. That would be a step up in my actual, let's just say, rack of
I
equipment.
I understand what you mean, and I was actually going to say pretty much the same thing. When you are upgrading, you should know why you are upgrading. What is the problem that you have with your current gear? What it can't do and what it's going to be able to do when you buy higher end, because otherwise you end up with a camera that basically does exactly the same thing, or lens that pretty much do the same thing that the original one did. And yeah, this is something that I struggle with a lot. For example, I'm trying to justify buying a new camera whose main advantage is going to be a resolution. And I actually would like that because, for one, I'm often cropping, and sometimes when I crop, I end up with a photo that is no longer print worthy because the resolution is just not sufficient. And also, I'm, for example, for my patrons, I'm printing at A2 format, and my current camera is not really having a resolution sufficient for that, or at least technically. I'm using upscaling, so it sort of works, but I'm very, very tempted, and it's also very, very expensive. So far, I've been resisting.
That actually makes me wonder how much you're cropping that this would actually be a concern. Like, you would also have to have
Canon
20 megapixels?
Canon R6 has less than 20 megapixels to start with.
Oh. So it got 16 megapixels? Or
I think I have no idea, but it's not really much. It's like five something.
but
I would have to look up the spec.
but practically it would still not matter that much when you're going for printing and you're going for an A2 print. I don't think people would actually go up with their nose to the print to count the pixels.
And this is exactly the reason why I still don't have the camera, because I'm telling myself exactly the same thing. But when it comes to what I would buy if money was not a concern, it would be Canon R5.
Oh yeah, if money would not be a concern, I would go for Nikon Z9. But there's
Why? What is it that you are looking for there? Because we have been talking about a niche that is going to fill.
the niche that is going to be filled, for me at least. I'm currently using the Nikon D850. It has no in-body stabilization. It's still got an optical viewfinder, and the new Z lenses don't fit on my old F mount. So basically, these niches would be filled. I'm interested in getting the newer, higher quality lenses with the hopes of benefiting from the in-body stabilization and eye tracking and everything like that. That's new in technology. Basically,
And is it actually a concern, the stabilization? Because to be honest, it's been ages since I've got a blurry picture. And I don't have any stabilization in my lens or body.
didn't you say you got the R9, R6?
Are you going to tell me that it has stabilization?
I would think so. Isn't
In
Please,
that case, I have no idea.
please do tell me that it has, because I was like, it should have.
I have no idea. But normally, when you are having lenses with very small minimum aperture, you can just compensate by having longer or shorter exposition time because you are going to have enough light.
But I would be betting money on the fact that the R6 has to have some kind of in-body stabilization. But it's interesting to know that you've never worked with it, never activated
Okay,
it.
I've just learned that it does.
Oh,
I had this is my attitude to gear. I have really no idea. I bought it solely for the fact that it's mirrorless. I wanted to try mirrorless, and I have to say I fell in love with that.
Because it's lighter and lightweight.
Because it's more, to my big surprise, it's more reliable. Since it doesn't rely on focal points for focusing, it can focus at any point because it's using. It's surprisingly much more reliable when it comes to focusing than my 5D Mark III, which I thought is like a really good camera, and I was very satisfied with it. But I was in a habit of making 3 pictures every time, 3 pictures in a succession, because there was a good chance that at least one of them is going to be misfocused. Like, I'm not saying every picture, but you wanted to be sure.
Interesting. And you
And
do know that the R6 should have eye focus automatically? Also working.
It does, but I've tried it. I wasn't satisfied with it because
Really?
yeah, it's kind of weird. In situations where I would be perfectly able to do it with focusing on focal point, it misses for some reason. And sometimes it's able to hold and track the eye in situations where I have absolutely no idea how it does it. But overall, I'm more comfortable just using manual focal point.
Like, I've been able to basically get a hold of the Z8 at some point, only for a rental time, basically, only a short while. But using this out of focus for eyes and animals and anything like that, that's basically cheating. Like, when it works, at least it worked in my case, so that's one point. But when it works,
The thing is,
enticing.
consider my photography. Consider my photography. I'm very often having very static scenes. So I don't really need super heavy tracking, and quote me old fashioned, I'm just used to manually choosing where I want to focus.
Of course, it works.
And there is a second thing that I really like about mirrorless, and that is the exposition simulation in Viewfinder. That was a game changer. Like, I can do without that. I was photographing without that for like 10 years or 8 years, but it was I'm very used to it. When I returned to my old camera because I wanted to sell it and I was showing it to a prospective buyer, I was suddenly very surprised that there is no exposition simulation.
I mean, that's what an optical viewfinder basically is. So it's great that you don't have any delays, any blackouts, anything like that. At least in most cases, I would say. But you got a straight view directly optical through the camera, through the viewfinder. So
Yeah, but the important thing is that you pretty much see what the picture is going to look like. You don't see a reality. You see what it's going to look when you press the trigger. So you see the effect of adding or subtracting exposition time, and it's getting darker or brighter.
And that is exactly the one kind of niche that an upgrade would fill, if you know what I mean. But it basically gets back to the beginning of why one would need the mirrorless camera, for example, mirrorless body.
I'm not sure if it's something to be honest, I didn't buy it for that. I just wanted to try a mirrorless, but I completely fell in love with this feature. Okay, we have been technical for quite a while. Maybe let's see. What would be, say, is the most and least useful piece of gear that you have? something that you are using constantly, and something you bought and you thought is going to be great, and it's absolutely not being used?
Oh, it depends. It highly depends. I would say that I've got a used Tamron f1.8 with image stabilizer in it, and it's 35mm focal length, but has so much chromatic aberration in the lens itself that I just can't seem to willingly use it until I accidentally put it on and I'm like, oh shit, this lens is perfect. And the worst part is the 35mm focal length. Going it with a prime is absolutely up my alley, I would say. But the lens is so dreadful in quality that I can't seem to bring myself to willfully equip it unless I don't think about which lens I'm grabbing, which has
So
happened quite a lot.
is this the least useful one?
Kind of.
I wasn't sure if it's the most used one or the least useful.
This is the opinion I have about all my gear. Same goes with the 70 to 200. It's great unless I think about having to use it. When I'm starting to use it, it's completely fine. Same goes with my lighting equipment. Same goes with that.
What's your most favorite part of your lighting equipment?
Oh, tough question. It allows me to work in the dark with the.
No, I mean which piece specifically? I will fill in. For me, game changer was using a softbox. I generally try to photograph as lightly as possible, which doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not having a heap of gear with me, but the less I can have, the happier I am. And softbox is exactly a pretty cumbersome thing that you have to lug around, and it's bulky, and I was avoiding it like plague. And my lighting was always really weird, and I couldn't figure out what is wrong because I knew how to light a human, and when I tried it with a fursuit, it absolutely didn't work. And after struggling for like 3 or 4 years, I finally started to use softbox, and I've realized that that was the problem. That there are too many sharp edges on a fursuit, especially when it has 3D eyes, which I passionately hate. And softbox pretty much solved this problem for me. So this was a game changer.
I see. So that would be your most useful equipment.
And probably least useful was the Fresnel light, the one that got eventually stolen from me. And to be honest, I was like, okay, so finally I don't have to worry about the fact I'm not using this thing because somebody stole it.
I would actually have to look up what a Fresnel light is. What does it do?
It allows you to shape the cone of the light that it's making. You can make almost a spotlight out of it, or you can have a wider cone. I'm using it for a good light sometimes when I need this cone of light that is aimed at you. You will see, you will
like
know
a
it from a
spotlight,
theater.
basically. Like a spotlight.
Basically a spotlight, yeah. And it's variable. You can make it wider or more narrow.
Okay, that would, if I would have that, that would probably be my least useful. Because
it's actually really cool with humans, but it absolutely doesn't work with fursuits for the reason that I've explained. There are too many sharp edges, and it doesn't really combine with a softbox. So I was really trying to use it, and I really liked it on humans. But since I mostly photograph fursuiters, it was mostly laying in my cupboard, and then it was stolen.
All right. But when I think about it, probably I would have to give a counterpoint to you. You would say the softbox is probably the most useful for you. I would say the lighting equipment that I got is the least useful for me. Because I've been so accustomed to working without any artificial light that I have very much trouble to integrating artificial light into my actual photo shoots. When I'm carrying around the extra light, I'm only rarely equipping it and rarely putting it up and being like, okay, I can do this like this and move over there and maybe at worst, at max, use a flashlight that I carry in my pocket to give some extra light in the face. Much easier for me and much easier done when I'm not in a studio setting or let's just say a photo box setup kind of way, that I just get on with natural light, even if it's dark outside, even if there's indoors. I would rather push up the ISO than actually worry during a photo shoot with the light setup, because it's so much to carry around, and especially when I'm mobile during a photo shoot, it's too much of a hassle, too much of a time drain to actually
That I can absolutely understand.
put to
I've mentioned it
use.
already that I'm trying to travel as light as I possibly can, especially when I'm mobile. But otherwise, is it about being dissatisfied with the results or being afraid that the results are going or not going to be good, or what is the actual reason? I will tell you why I ask when you answer.
Okay, afterwards, interesting.
I just don't want to influence you.
I would argue that carrying the extra weight and everything like that is a bit more, let's just say, distracting from the actual photos, where you have another point to consider, as well as the fact that you just have to lug it around yourself. If I would have a third person with me that would do the carrying for me, it would probably be easier to encompass in a photo shoot. But
I use an assistant very often. Usually,
yeah,
one of my friends is willing to help.
with an assistant, I would probably think it would alleviate the whole issue with extra lighting. But what would you respond to that?
Well, I had. It's absolutely understandable what you're saying. In my case, it's a very me thing. I was afraid that if I'm going to be using fancy lighting and the results are not going to be fancy, then people are going to see me as a poser. That look, he's having all that expensive gear and pretending that he knows what he's doing, and he actually doesn't. And I was terribly afraid of using my external lights, even though I had some basic idea how to use them. But I only had a basic idea, and sometimes you can completely destroy a photo by adding more lights into it.
True.
And it took me a lot of time before I've got the confidence that I actually know what I'm doing, and I started using them. And you can see that my style of photography is very often heavily depending on external lights. Not so much for getting more light, it's more for evening the light or making effects in the background, lighting some crevices where I just toss a colored light and it makes a mysterious glow from behind, this kind of things.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yes, I would say that. Yeah, it's not about being an imposter or being a poser or anything like that. It's more like having to decide whether you want to switch on the artificial light or use what's available to you. Isn't that more like having to decide, and the not executive dysfunction, but the indecisiveness of having to decide what to actually use for the result that you want to achieve, whether the benefit of adding the work for the artificial light is worth it in terms of increasing the value of the photo itself?
That's a rational way to look at it, but I was talking about my insecurities.
Okay,
I
I'm
was
very
afraid
I'm
that
very
people are
terrible.
going to judge me because if I use all this expensive stuff and the result is not stellar, then it's going to seem like I'm pretending. By the way, a person that I've learned quite a lot from, he was doing professional photo shoots, and he said I'm usually just using 2 lights, but when I'm doing a really expensive corporate stuff, I need to bring at least 6 lights because otherwise they are feeling like they are not getting their money's worth. And then the lights are just standing around, and I'm using the 2 I actually need. But I need to pretend a little bit because the customer would otherwise be disappointed. Which is kind of
Oh,
hilarious, but I guess that he was actually having a point.
I can at least see where you're coming from. And I'm kind of sorry for not alleviating your insecurities, I think.
Actually, I've dealt with it already, but it took me a while. And actually, my recommendation is just try for people that are having this kind of insecurities, just try. You will get a hang of it. Problem is that if you are not trying because you are afraid to try, then you are never going to learn. And this is exactly what was happening to me. It took me insanely long time, and eventually it wasn't as hard as I expected.
Then we would probably fall back to the fact that when you just do the thing that you committed to, and for example, you decided on putting up the lights and decided upon going with full artificial lighting and setting up everything, perhaps because you're in the middle of the night and it's completely dark outside, no moon and everything like that, and you're just committing to it, then you'll probably grow into the work itself, and thus not only alleviating your own insecurities, but also improving on your results.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Mhm.
When the results starting working the way that I was expecting, the insecurities disappeared because I no longer felt like I'm just playing around with expensive gear I have no idea how to use, but that I'm actually using it in a way that is meaningful.
Mhm. So would you recommend other people to also get some artificial lighting and see if they can work with it?
Start small. Start with one main light and maybe buy one or two effect lights, and start using them. And you will see how it works and how it doesn't work, and you won't get overwhelmed because this is very easy to happen when you are having too many lights. They start influencing each other. You are not sure where the light is coming from. When we have been learning how to light, our lecturer actually told us use one light at a time. Turn everything off, turn one light on, see where it shines, turn it off, turn on another light, see where it shines, turn it off. And in this way, you will actually figure out what part of the light in the final photo is coming from which light, and you will see why it's not working. And this is much easier when you are having just one or two lights than when you are trying to handle 8 at once.
And it's probably easier to consider them all when you only have two of them, because it's much easier to compensate with settings and camera and everything like that.
Yeah, that's probably also true. But honestly, when you have the lights set right, then there is not much compensation. Primarily, unless you are in studio and the lights are really your main source of light, I'm using my lights mostly for creating some kind of dramatic effect, like rim light or those glows I was talking about, just lighting some mysterious places. When you are photographing and there is a bookcase and you put a light behind the books, then you are going to have a glow coming out and it's going to look interesting. Even though it doesn't make any sense, it's still going to look interesting.
So you would suggest to put up one simple light and probably keep it close to the camera?
No, I would definitely recommend not keeping the light close to the camera. That's the opposite of what you want to do. But honestly, I think this is, if I was to talk about this, it deserves a special episode because there's too much to talk about when it comes to lighting.
Perhaps we might. Perhaps.
We should. I like the idea, but let's do it later. Let's see what else we have to talk about. I believe that you wanted to make your point regarding how you don't need a super fancy camera regarding what NASA used on Artemis 2.
Oh, I mean, I did put down the comment about Nikon and potato, which basically pulls into the let's just say general trope that people make fun of Nikon for being a potato camera, for being the non-portraiture and landscape photography camera, where I actually have to say that this is completely, yeah, let's just say garbage, because in practice most cameras are, let's just say, very similar in their specs, in their capabilities and everything like that, especially today, as we figured out. And I kind of want to jab at those people by telling them, look, when NASA decides to go around the moon with Artemis 2, they put up a Nikon D5, the old camera that was established and were working, flagship of Nikon, and the newest one, the Z9. both of them on the trip, not deciding for Sony, not deciding for Canon, of course. So it kind of fills me with a bit of joy.
Because you're an iconist.
Of
I
course.
was pondering if I should make some kind of Canon job, but honestly, I never quite understood this kind of brand wars. I was never a fanboy. The only reason I haven't switched from Canon to Sony is that I would have to buy a shitload of new lenses, and I just don't feel like doing it. And I don't feel that the advantage of having a Sony camera is big enough to justify that. And at some point, if I decided that Nikon is going to give me better results, I wouldn't have problem switching from Sony back to Nikon. But honestly, I think that if you give me any camera, I'm going to do a lot of swearing and cussing because the controls are not going to be where I expect them to be. But
Yes.
performance-wise, any camera will do. I was on a workshop photographing horses, or I was supposed to be photographing horses, and I forgot my batteries.
You forgot that your
I only had a
batteries?
camera. I forgot my batteries. I had a camera without batteries. And
I'm sorry.
that's a yin thing. This is just something I'm doing. I wonder if there is something I haven't forgotten. I think the only thing I haven't forgotten yet was my camera. And once when I was going to do a video, I forgot my video camera because I had my camera with me and I saw that it's going to suffice, and then I remember that it's actually a prop. But anyway, what I wanted to get to is the photographer that was giving the workshop lended me her camera. It was an Nikon. And yeah, I was cussing and swearing because every time I tried to touch one of the buttons, it was not there. But other than that, I had absolutely the same pictures as if I had my own.
Yeah, because in principle, that's probably also why I like to nag about the camera brands. It's completely irrelevant, at least nowadays. They all do basically the same thing. They all got some kind of tracking.
This is something that we agree on, and I would like to maybe wrap up with a common question. What camera should I buy? When people do people come to you to ask this?
Quite often, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but
Would you? I can guess. What do you answer?
it depends on what you want to do. It depends on your budget and how you personally feel about the camera. It sounds a bit, let's just say, esoteric, but go to a camera store, tell them what you kind of are looking for, what your budget is, and ask them if you can just grab a camera in your own hands and be like, what camera feels right for me. I, for example, had a Sony in my hand and it was like, it doesn't feel right. It's the ergonomics of the body, for example. It's the placement of the buttons. It's like Harry Potter and the wand. You go to the store and the wand picks you and you don't pick the wand. Same goes for the camera. You go to the store, test the camera out, and you feel like, okay, this camera is right for me. And the main constraint is the budget and how you feel about it. So when you, for example, have a budget of 500 euros, then you would have to see for kind of used cameras or check for an APS-C camera or go for a compact camera even, depending on what you can afford. But if money is not an issue, then go to the camera store, tell them what you want to achieve, like I want to do portraitures, I want to do landscape, I want to do sports, whatever, and they can give you some kind of direction. And after that, you can feel the camera. And after feeling the camera, you will be probably very certain if you want it or if you want it not. At least from my experience.
I'm actually giving a very similar recommendation. Take it in your hands and feel how it feels is something that I really think that kind of works. The only exception is if you are having a friend that you will be able to borrow lens from, then maybe go for the same brand as him.
Oh yeah, that's good.
The second recommendation I'm giving when I get to the point where I recommend them to get a camera is put half of the budget into camera body and half of the budget into lens.
I would say starting out with one lens is more than sufficient. For
I'm
example,
not saying that he should buy 3. I'm just saying that he should buy quality lens. It matters much more than body.
I would also disagree here. If you want, you can go
Okay.
to MVP or Calumet or whatever camera store you have. Camera New, Camera, whatever. Photokoch, doesn't matter. They typically all resell used lenses, and lenses don't go bad unless they're stored improperly. So going for MVP, for example, going for not just well-used lenses, but acceptable conditions, maybe in good conditions, you can get used lenses for 200, 300 euros, maybe even less, and they would still do kind of the same results in pictures, maybe even better ones because they're vintage lenses, than having to get the same amount of budget for the camera lens than the camera body itself. At least from my own experience, it works quite well, especially when you're on a budget.
Well, my point that I've already mentioned is that lens is much more important for the result than the body. So the moral I wanted to transmit was don't save on lenses, save on body.
Both is
And
equally important.
There is one last thing that, or actually the first thing that I ask is, what kind of photography do you want to do? Do you really want to have a heavy camera with a heavy lens and carry it around and dedicate your time to taking pictures? Or do you just want the pictures? Because there's absolutely no shame in saying, I just want some snapshots. And if that's the case, my recommendation at the moment is, in that case, buy iPhone. It's going to do much better service than buying an expensive camera that you will soon realize that it's too heavy and too cumbersome, and you will start leaving it at home. And honestly, iPhones and generally photo phones, the high-end cars, cheaper and doing very good kind of photography when you just want to upload it on social networks.
Yeah. Most likely, yes. Because you're already carrying a phone with you, whether it's Google Pixel, iPhone, whatever. It's sufficient for social media.
And I'm a little afraid that at some point I may ask them, how much work do you want to put into the photography? And if they say that very little, maybe I will just recommend them to subscribe to a good AI site.
Okay. Care to elaborate on that? I'm interested.
That was kind of halfway a joke, but I have to say that I've seen what AI can generate, and I think that at some point, for some people, it will be much easier to just generate their ideas than try to find the location, scout the location, find the model, set it up, and take a picture.
That would completely contradict the photography aspect in all regards.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is that not everybody wants to do the photography.
Then I would not see why one would generate themselves or another fursuiter in a certain setting.
Okay, I think this sounds like something for another episode as well. It was meant to be a joke.
I would gladly. Finally, we have something to disagree on again.
Yeah, we probably will disagree a lot. Okay, so let's stick to the fact that for a lot of people, iPhone is a very good camera, and it may be actually a much better experience than the, let's say, proper one. And those that really like to play with the gear and want to do the complicated process, like us, are going to stick to the DSLRs or mirrorless. Okay, I think that unless you have something to add, this would be enough for today.
Regarding AI, we'd probably be also good about talking about VR photography, going to virtual places and all.
That sounds like a very interesting thing where I will heavily rely on you because I have zero experience with that.
It's basically just like photography in games with screenshots and virtual cameras. Very fun to do,
understand what you
actually.
mean. I understand what you mean. I just have zero experience, so I will be happy to get enlightened.
Perhaps this will be the next episode.
We have a lot of new ideas. Nevertheless, if you have anything that you would like to hear about, if you have anything you would like to ask about, we would be very happy to see it in the comments because it's giving us ideas for new episodes. And that's all for today. I'm Farsi Footer.
And I'm Pinsel. Goodbye.
And we will see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
See you.